This is the face I like to make when I say, I told you so.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you're downloading your podcast, this show is always free, and the show always appreciates your support. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we all want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is still hooking you up, all the customers, with a boost or a bonus. And they're doing that daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on. Look, I said it. I said, don't be shocked if another decommitment happens when the dead period kicks in. And I said, anticipate more commitments, right? My everydayers, I've said it more than once. It happened. It's the dead period. And look, right, if it kind of at least feels like it, like there's more action going on than there was when the recruits were taking their official visits. Like I said, it just seems like it, only because there's been so many commitments and decommitments. It's kind of like the in fashion thing to do right now. And USC is not the only program suffering here. Although, you watch this show because you want to hear about USC news. That's what we're talking about right now. So Lincoln Riley, his staff right now, most of them, they're taking a well-deserved vacation. That's what coaches do during the dead period, especially going into July. Stick around because we're about to get really serious. We'll talk about that in the third segment. But on Sunday, one day before the month of June flips to July, USC got another big commitment, and they got at a position of need, believe it or not. And it's a position that USC typically does pretty well with when it comes to recruiting, development, sending guys to the NFL. Wide receiver. 4-star St. Louis, Missouri Christian Brothers Academy wide receiver Corey Sims. He announced his commitment to USC. Pretty cool, huh? Quote, Coach Dennis Simmons said they're going to throw the ball and they have great academics, a great support system, and it feels like home. And it's not really that cold there in the winter. When I was there in the winter, they said that's the coldest it gets there. It's amazing. That's what Corey Sims said after his commitment. Now, my everydayers who watched Friday's episode, the last episode of Locked on USC that we've put out there, you got to see recruiting guru Scott Schrader from WeRSC.com, and he was talking about USC's current recruiting, the environment they're working in right now. Well, one environment is he flew out to St. Louis for the Sims announcement. That's always a good sign when he's making those types of trips. So one of the things that Scott alluded to on the show was things were going to be changing as July got closer. Well, here we are. Sims is the first of what could be a slew of commitments. We can anticipate a few more that are going to be made public. No more of these fight on emojis from Lincoln Riley and from the USC football staff. Although those are great. Here's the thing. Here's how the whole process worked with Corey Sims and USC, how it all came down. USC didn't even offer Corey until January, and late in January, end of the month. That's when wide receiver coach Dennis Simmons, he got out to St. Louis. He visited Christian Brothers, and that's when the relationship got established. That's when it started. Shortly thereafter, Corey Sims is on an airplane, and he's coming out to California in February. He was playing in a 7-on-7 event for California Power. It's one of those big-time 7-on-7, I call them collectives, because basically they're putting together the best talent. It doesn't matter where you are from, whatever part of the country, they come together and play in these tournaments. Well, I'll take you down that rabbit hole in another show. Just want to let you know why he was in California and how we got to California and why he was out there. So he was out there for 7-on-7. He made an unofficial visit to USC. He was pretty impressed. And that's what got him coming back for his official visit that he took to USC June 7th through the 9th. And he talked about the impact of that visit, which, by the way, Juju Lewis was also on his official visit to USC that weekend. Really important. WeAreSC.com asked Corey if he had an opportunity to spend any time with Juju during their official visits and how significant it is that, USC already has their quarterback committed, somebody of that caliber. Corey said, I talked with Juju a lot during our visit. Juju is a great addition to USC, and having a quarterback is important. A good quarterback is needed in order for the wide receiver to thrive in Coach Riley's offense. USC got a good one. He's referring to Juju. Now, if you need a better example of why I despise the star ranking system, why it needs to be scrapped, talking about the recruiting star ranking system, look no further than this. Here's the perfect example, okay? He's a 4-star in the On3 industry overall rankings, okay? He's ranked the 293rd best player overall. On3 ranks their top 300 players. He checks in at 293. Now, he's a 3-star in the On3 rankings, as well as in the 247 and ESPN rankings, but he's high enough in all three to go into the 4-star range when all 4 recruiting services, rivals included, are taken into consideration. So that's why he's considered a 4-star. He's just under that 90.0 that, most people associate with. He's like 89 point something. He's probably going to get re-ranked as well once his senior season starts. 6'4", 200 pounds, 205 pounds, depending on what scale he's stepping on. So he's definitely in the big wide receiver mold. And USC needs someone in this 2025 class in that size range. They got a couple of smaller guys already in DeJuan Morris and Romero Eisen. Also, another reason why I don't care about the star rankings, again, he had offers from everyone who matters, including Georgia, Michigan. I mean, his final 3 schools came down between Penn State, the home school, Missouri, USC. And that's all that matters when you're choosing between the hometown school, an SEC school, and 2 big conference schools. When Sims finally trimmed his final list to Missouri, Penn State, and USC, this is what he said of the Trojans. USC and Lincoln Riley are known for throwing the ball. They get the ball to their receivers, and they have great receivers. USC also has great receivers that Dennis Simmons develops. Now, as a junior last year, Corey caught 79 passes, 1,049 yards, 12 touchdowns. Again, he's ready to blow up his senior campaign. He was asked he said, describe yourself. What is USC getting? Who is Corey Sims? This is what he said of himself after he had his commitment ceremony. They're getting a good guy. They're getting a person who will do anything to help the team out. That's number one. We're trying to win. That's the end goal. They're getting a dog, basically. I'll say this. I watched his commitment ceremony. Again, Scott Schrader was out there. He was doing it live on X. And he was having his fun with the whole hat ceremony thing of it. I'm not a fan of that. Put the hat on. Leave it on. Don't play the whole shell game where you're throwing them all over the place. Look, I get it. Young man, having fun with the whole commitment process. Just not my cup of tea. I'm not going to hold it against him, trust me. But just saying, for anybody else out there, don't do that. It's not necessary. Again, not holding it against him. Cannot wait to meet and speak to the young man. Now, if you need to know that, if you need more reassurance that Juju Lewis is going to be a Trojan. He's going to shut it down. He's taking his official visits. Let me give you this little nugget. Again, our recruiting guru over here, Scott Schrader, he was told when he went back to St. Louis, he was told by Corey's stepdad that he spoke to Juju's father. Okay, so Corey's dad spoke to Juju's dad just to make sure they weren't going anywhere, end quote. So they got confirmation that they were hoping for, okay? Juju will be the quarterback. You heard Corey Sims say it. I think we're going through some pretty good sources here. So, to the Colorado Buffaloes fan who watches this show, thank you very much. And who left me a comment on the YouTube chat, thank you very much. How's that energy? You like that? There was some question that he's about to flip to Colorado. Maybe. I guess it's possible. But according to the fathers of Juju and USC's latest wide receiver commitment, Corey Sims, that ain't happening. So we'll see. Look, USC needed this commitment at wide receiver. When Corey does arrive in 2025, you got Zachariah Branch, Deuce Robinson, Mekhi Lemon, Jacoby Lane. All three of them are going to be going into their junior campaigns at USC. I would say at least two of them could be on their way to the NFL at the end of that season. So Corey knows right away when he gets to USC. Playing time is there. The opportunity, just got to earn it. Remember, Xavier Jordan was the only wide receiver USC brought in with the 2024 recruiting class. Now, with the addition of Corey, Coach Riley, Coach Simmons, they have 3 wide receivers committed to the 2025 recruiting class. USC has a total of 12. 12 is better than 11 because that's how many they had going in to the weekend before Corey took the plunge. So just remind everybody, you've got Juju Lewis, Matai Tagovailoa, linebacker, hybrid safety, Romero Eisen, wide receiver, Harry Dalton, running back, Tristan Castro, cornerback, Gus Cordova, defensive lineman, Shamar Arnu, defensive back, Willie Washer, offensive lineman, Riley Wormley, running back, Hayden Lowe, defensive lineman, Corey Sims, wide receiver, DeJuan Morris, wide receiver. That's 12. Just to kind of close this segment out, just kind of remind everyone what the recruiting guru Scott Schrader said on Friday's episode of Locked on USC. By the way, when you're done making this episode of Locked on USC, your first listen, go check it out. And then when you're done checking that out, head on over to wearesc.com and you'll close the circle with all the news and notes over there. What Scott said was that, the list that USC is currently sitting on, 11, well, now 12, it's going to grow significantly in the next coming days. Okay? And don't be surprised if USC has as many as 15 commitments by the end of the week. So I'll say it now. Stay tuned all this week for updates on Locked on USC. And when you're not over here, you know where to be. I love sports. I love college football. I never wanted to stop. I mean, can you imagine college football, the season going 24/7, 365? Not going to happen. Well, who knows? But as the playoffs wind down and we get fewer games and the sports just aren't sporting like we want them to, we still have FanDuel, and that's going to let us keep the sports going whenever we want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus, and they're doing it daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com/locked on and start making the most out of the summer. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. You're watching Fox Sports. You're watching ESPN all day long. You're getting your fix in. But all of a sudden, someone starts yelling and screaming, and you hit that mute button. Make the switch to Locked on Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel. It's programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked on Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news and it's streaming for you 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Remember, I told you last week that Hilton Stubbs was on the flip watch list. I said it was going to happen. It happened. Timing could not have been any worse for me on social media. I got cooked. It's all right. I kind of anticipated, but you know what? You learn from your mistakes. It doesn't kill you, makes you stronger. Iron sharpens iron. Got all the cliches out of the way. Remember all those emojis that Coach Riley and football staff were messaging on X? I think, look, we're still waiting for some of those to be revealed. I think by now we figured it out. One of them was for Corey Sims, the last one. Here's some bad news, at least for now. I got confirmation. Okay. Noah McHale was not one of these that the USC coaching staff put out after one of those official visit weekends. He's going to commit to Texas A&M. Okay. He's not going to Oregon. So you can, USC fans, take your deep sigh. At least he's not going to Oregon, right? Cope. Look, I'm at the point where those whole emoji things, they're not serving the purpose they were supposed to. I mean, I like the enthusiasm they generate, but when no one makes their commitment public, you're essentially just setting people up for a letdown. That whole expectation thing, where I don't like to use the word. You see how USC fans can act. Got to walk a lot of you off the ledge. That's what I'm here for, though. I'm your Dr. Phil. So, while I'm not saying that USC isn't meeting the fans' expectations, I am saying that the list of excuses that USC, myself included, that we're using, it's running thin. The USC fan base, I think at this point, they're at the point where the list of excuses for USC's recruiting, the results, it's reached its limits. They want better results. Do you know how long USC and people like me have been trying not to make excuses for USC's mediocrity on the field with recruiting? NIL. When it comes to recruiting, I think I have the primary reason why. And it's not another excuse. It's really the cold, hard facts, especially if we're being honest. It's one small part, NIL. Okay. We know that. We know that because it was put under the microscope during the transfer portal during the spring. USC just didn't get what they needed. One big part of why USC is struggling with recruiting. Well, did you know that the last time USC football had back-to-back double-digit wins in a season, Clay Helton was still USC's head coach? Yeah, it's true. It's been 10 years, almost 10 years, since the Trojans put together 2 successful seasons of winning 10 or more games. You got to go back to 2016 and 2017. It's crazy. In 2016, USC beat Penn State in the Rose Bowl. They got to 10 wins. And then in 2017, USC went into the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State. They already had 11 wins. Cotton Bowl kind of ended like USC's last trip to the Cotton Bowl. They went in there with 11 wins. They left with another loss. One against Tulane isn't as acceptable as the one against Ohio State. Neither are acceptable. The one against Tulane, though. Anyways, deep breath, Mark. Anyway, since then, since USC's 2016 and 2017 seasons, USC has had just one season with more than 9 wins. That was with Lincoln Riley's first year at USC. They won 11 games. They also got the Heisman. So when you're the Trojans and you're coming off an 11-win season with the Heisman-winning quarterback returning, when that's not enough to break the trend, it really is. It's time to look under the hood, as one former college football head coach used to say, Urban Meyer. Got to get under the hood. Got to see what's wrong. Because right now, the problems at USC, it's systemic. It's not just one issue. No one wants to make excuses. But if we're being honest, some of USC's challenges, they were self-inflicted. The people who were left in charge, they procrastinated. They waited too long to start fixing the coaching problem and the NIL program and the effect it was having on recruiting. It's often said, I've said it, I've learned that, to be successful at anything in life, you have to learn to deal with failure, learn from your past mistakes so you can move forward. Well, here we are, right? On USC's end, the coaching issue needed to be addressed. That was handled. They hired Lincoln Riley. USC knew they needed a better head coach. They needed someone willing to recruit the best players available and convince them to play for the Trojans. That was a struggle for Clay Helton and his staff. The perception was USC was settling. So far, since Lincoln Riley has taken over, the results with recruiting, they've been mixed. A lot of good, some bad mixed in there. One excuse that was made for waiting so long to make the move to get Lincoln Riley was the athletic department wanting to make sure USC's infrastructure was in place. That way they had a better chance to lure a better coach, like a Lincoln Riley. In other words, they had to make sure that football-only facility was in place. And by in place, moving forward. It wasn't just we're talking about it anymore. No, we're doing it. So you had that. You got your money people in place doing stuff behind the scenes. You can go make a great PowerPoint presentation to Lincoln Riley. It worked. Ironically, it may have taken Lincoln Riley 1 year too long to get rid of Alex Grinch, his defensive coordinator. Coach Riley learned a hard lesson, right? Especially when it comes to loyalty and doing the right thing. But here's the thing. There won't be any more excuses allowed for the team's lack of defense. Okay? Especially now that defense has been made priority number one going forward. So no more excuses for why the defense looks as crappy as it's looked since Lincoln Riley took over. It's still true. USC's defensive roster has some issues with depth and experience. But that's really going to be the only excuse available in 2024. And that's if injuries come into effect. And it's an excuse because the Trojans, it's not for a lack of effort, but they were beaten out for additional help when it came down to the NIL contributions part of it, or the lack thereof. Whether we're talking about recruiting or the transfer portal, defensive linemen are a premium, and when it comes with a premium, you're going to pay above sticker price. Excuse me. So unfortunately, when it comes to NIL and recruiting, USC is still trying to figure it out. Because the recruits, they're still in the wait and see mode. Whether or not USC's NIL issue has been addressed, one thing still is true. It's taking too long for USC to get everything figured out. Trojan fans are tired of waiting for improvement on the recruiting trail, specifically when it comes to the California recruits. It just feels like the more fixes USC makes to correct their mistakes, and despite always taking that next step forward, there's always another excuse on why it's taking longer than it should for everything to correct itself, specifically with recruiting, specifically with the best recruits from USC's backyard who aren't making any excuses for why they're leaving home. I know it sounds like an excuse, but the biggest reason for USC's lack of recruiting success, it has a lot more to do with a lack of success on the football field for more than 1 year at a time. I mean, that's what it comes down to. USC went 11-3, won the Heisman, follow that up with an 8-5 season. I'll leave you with this thought. Isn't it weird? Georgia gets zero shade for losing their best in-state wide receiver, CJ Wiley. You know why CJ didn't go to Georgia? One of the reasons? Probably because the Bulldogs have not produced a 1,000-yard wide receiver since 2002. USC has a hard time keeping their top guys on the defensive side of the ball home because USC hasn't shown they know how to play defense, or at least it feels like it. Feels like they haven't played defense since 2008. That's the level of defense that USC fans want to see. If you know, you know. So it's time to get really serious, real serious, because in 30, 31 days, fall camp's going to be open. Yeah. Can you believe it's July already? Time is flying when you're having fun, or when you're watching your recruiting class go up and down like a roller coaster. Well, I'll tell you what, before you know it, those summer player run practices, they're going to turn into shorts and shells. And then all of a sudden, shorts and shells, they're going to turn into the pads going on. And USC is, they're installing their game plan. They're preparing for LSU. I mean, are you ready for the summer to end? Because you got about 30 more days. Well, it's going to last longer, but you understand where I'm going with this. As far as USC, the football team's concerned, they probably don't want the summer to end. Not quite yet. Yeah, they want to get after. Don't get me wrong. They're looking forward to playing. But another 30 days of lifting weights, eating, getting familiar with each other, that's probably not a bad thing. And that's the plan for the next month. Get real serious. Because after that, it gets real. It gets real. These next 30 days, this is when the team gets to, to meet the rest of the 2024 recruiting class and the transfers, the guys who came in. They started showing up towards the end of June. Now they're enrolled, taking summer classes. Talking about guys like Carlon Jones, high school recruit, going to play defensive line on the interior. Big dude. Also, good dude. Gives back to the community already. Transfer portal guy, Gavin Meyer, defensive tackle from Wyoming. Offensive lineman, Hayden Trader. Big Hayden Trader. Yeah. So the first thing USC needs to do between now and fall camp, they need to pass the eyeball test. They have to at least look the part. Getting bigger was one of the top priorities. They started to look the part by the end of spring. I'm showing you pictures, showing you video. I'll get back to that. Don't worry. The second thing they need to do these next 30 days, they need to stay relatively healthy between now and September 1st. So actually, we're going to extend our 30-day window here. They need to stay relatively healthy between now and when USC and LSU kicks off. I mean, look, just got to keep it 100. Football's a contact sport. Stuff happens. Even non-contact stuff happens. The third thing, let's make sure the starter at quarterback is named right away, especially when we get to fall camp. I think we already know. We have a really good idea. I want Coach Riley to come out and say it. I know Coach Riley is going to talk about keeping the competition open, but this needs to be kicked to the curb this year. This year, it's Miller time. And when I say this year, because while USC waits for that defense to get up to speed, that offense has to be ready to go from Jump Street. They need to pick up right where they left off from the Holiday Bowl. Keep Miller behind the wheel. Because again, once fall camp opens, everyone needs to follow the leader. They need to know who's driving. Okay. Establish the pecking order. Let the wide receivers and Miller develop their chemistry. And that extends to the offensive line as well. So, fourth thing, establish a physical offensive line. Well, USC is going to throw the ball. We know that. But USC needs to get back to running the ball the way USC has been known to run the ball throughout her history. If you want to keep the defense, healthy, and you want to keep them basically, you want to keep the defense off the field as long as possible until they've earned it, until they've earned the right to be on the field. Just show us. It's not a bad thing. The fifth thing is obviously have that damn defense ready to show up in Las Vegas. And for longer than 20 minutes, please. No more. I don't want to see any more repeat performances of that whole caged dog routine like they did coming out of the locker room when they faced Alabama. Yeah. Just walk out there with confidence. And then walk away with the hearts and minds of everyone from across the country, because this is going to be the only game of the day on TV. So remember, everyone who's throwing haymakers at USC right now, throwing shade at the recruiting, all right, keep throwing your best punch. Because when USC comes out and they knock LSU, just remember, because I will. All right, that's this episode for Locked on USC. I'll be back with another episode tomorrow. That's what we do 5 times a week. Probably going to have some recruiting information, at least an update, and a whole bunch more. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.